boring white box that I transformed into a creative, colorful green guest room. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Aaron, aka Visionaaron, and I'm here to share with you another cool, colorful, creative project that's hopefully going to be an experience for anybody who comes and stays here. When you're doing something that's a bit more eccentric or maximalist, you do have to think about more things than when you go minimal or something that's more classic or that you've seen done before. And I'll tell you my different considerations for that, and hopefully you'll find those interesting and insightful, especially if you're working with vintage or antique furniture like I am, because almost everything I'm working with is from another time period, which comes with its special challenges. And I'll tell you how I kind of overcome those challenges. If you like to live your life with a bit more creativity, eccentricity, and imagination, then this is the place for you. Because I try to do all of those things and just try to help other people feel a little bit more confident in stepping outside of their comfort zone, going just a little bit more bold, going just a little bit more colorful. And I do that for myself. That's my goal. And hopefully I can help you feel a little bit more confident in doing it in your spaces as well. Each of the rooms in my home have a different personality or a different color theme. So this is green, and it all goes in a rainbow order. So there's like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. And if you stick around, I'm gonna try to create a whole series for you with this transformation and kind of makeover in this creative vintage style that I do that is kind of maximalist and eccentric. And hopefully you'll enjoy it or be inspired by some aspect of it. And then you put your own spin on it, or you do things the way that make you happy with your collections and things that you enjoy. I've lived all of my adult life in Europe, mostly in Italy, and I'm an Italian citizen, but I also work a lot in other countries like in France and in Portugal and all over the world. But these are some of the inspirations for this room in particular, because seeing so many palaces and old buildings like in Sintra, Portugal, where there's all these carved ornate woods and things like that just took so much kind of handcrafted technique that I still see in these pieces when I find them, that you just can't find when you buy something new or from like a big box store. And I understand not everybody can have access to, antique pieces and stuff like that. But I think a lot of times when you buy something that's vintage or used, you can find really great materials and quality for less than the price of a newer, kind of more cheap material that you find in production nowadays. One of my favorite buildings in Paris, the Palais Garnier, that's the old opera house in Paris, where I've done a lot of runway shows and some events also at night there. And just, I love it at all times of day. There's all this kind of ornate architecture and sculptural kind of feel wherever you go. Another big inspiration for this room is from a place in England called Eaton House Studio. If you go and watch my real life Barbie dream house video, it's this amazing pink house in the countryside in England, and it is magical on the outside and on the inside. It's created by my friend Amy Griffith, and I'm always inspired by her bold creativity that now has been photographed by top fashion photographers around the world and music videos and all sorts of things. That's not the main goal for my own space, but I did see from her success and her creativity how creating a space that's interesting creates lasting memory when you stay there. The room that I was inspired by is called the Sleeping Beauty Room, and you feel like you're falling asleep in an enchanted forest. So what I did is I kind of ran with the idea of ornate frames and organically shaped or Baroque kind of style, and grouping of those frames together help create a bit of an organic feel in the room. Even though the architecture itself is more boxy, when you have so many non-linear elements, you do feel a little bit like you're feeling an aesthetic of flowers or trees or plants or something that has more life and shape to it. I wanted to go a little bit with that idea of these ornate shapes and carved shapes, but on a green background. So that gives you the idea of sort of like being in an enchanted forest. I wanted to have this wall be a sort of minty shade, but green is a tricky color. I know that they're tricky because as a makeup artist, I also understand how colors interact and how we perceive color differently based on different contexts. You can take the same swatch of paint and put it next to different shades. You put it next to a red, you put it next to an orange, you put it next to a yellow, and that way we see that color changes. It looks like it's a different color when it's next to different things. Also, at different times of day, I'm sure you all know this, but when you look at paint in a store, or you look at it with natural daylight, or you look at it with a warm light of a chandelier, it changes the color in these different situations. So you're trying to find a shade that looks good in kind of any of these different lighting situations. And that's why people always say, you know, swatch and test on your wall and look at it at different times of the day. I go and I look at different samples of paint colors at different stores, and then I just buy a tub of a color that looks pretty close to what I want, but then I have bottles of pigments and other paints that I can just mix in until I can find a shade that when it dries, because it also looks different when it's wet and then when it dries, but really the main thing is that you just need to make sure you're always making a little bit more than you're actually going to need, especially if you're just making your own custom color, because if you run out, you can't buy that exact same shade again. And then whatever's left over, I can use it to mix some other projects or other shades that I might need later on. In this room, I wanted to do predominantly 2 different shades, not just an accent wall or something. I'm doing like half the room in a minty green and half of the room in a bit more committed green. I started with a little bit of the less challenging wall, which is the mint green side, because that's supposed to be a sort of mint chocolate chip. Another way that I use my makeup background when deciding paint colors is when I think about how it's going to photograph and how it's going to reflect and cast different dominant shades onto people's faces. When you have a green tone that is reflecting on your face, what it can do is it can actually act as a sort of reverse beauty filter that can accentuate any redness that you have in your skin. That's why if I were doing like a bathroom mirror, I wouldn't want any strong green shade right behind the mirror, because it's going to make you look a little less flattering if you have lighter skin with pink undertones like I do. I wanted to create a shade that I thought would work well with lots of different skin tones. My friends who come and stay here are from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, and I want everybody to look photogenic in my spaces. So I tried to create a shade that I thought would go well with any range of skin tones and work even on paler kind of pink toned skins like mine. Those are considerations, I think, where my makeup background come into play also in my home design. If you're new here, some people might know me already from my Instagram, where I share a lot of my colorful, creative clothing creations and upcycled designs and just a creative lifestyle. But now I'm trying to share some of that also in video. It's all new for me. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm really glad that you're here with me to learn and grow with me as I share these things on YouTube. So let's talk about furniture, especially vintage and antique furniture. This one was a bit easier, especially because right now, I might fill it up a little bit more later, but I started with just a trio of ornate wood framed mirrors, and I put the 2 that were kind of almost the exact same size. So they're not exactly the same, but they give a good balance to the room. One of the lessons that I learned from living in Europe is that the standard sizes of 100 years ago do not correspond to modern day standard sizing. I have lived in Italy for most of my life, and in some of the buildings are like hundreds of years old, and we have these big giant wooden doors that then they kind of cut out smaller doors to get in and out more easily, but a lot of them were cut like way below my head height for shorter people. And I've hit my head so many times on these doorways that it almost takes like enough pain for my subconscious to remember, always duck when you're in Europe, or at least Southern Europe. The average size of a bed is from about 135 to 140, and that's I think only like about 4 feet 7 inches or something like that. And the standard sized bed for couples in Europe at least is a queen size, like in North America they call it a queen size, that's about 160 wide, and the length is 2 meters or 200 centimeters. But the average length of these antique beds is like 180 or 190. I wanted to be able to use a modern bed, but then when you walk in, you feel that you're going to sleep in an antique bed. So what I did is I took apart the base, the antique base. I had to buy the whole bed in a lot of cases to get these ornate headboards. But then what you see with these ornate headboards is that they also have these legs that are all curved and ornate down below. And that means you can't really push it very flush against the wall. That can add an extra 15 to 20 centimeters, like 8 inches sometimes, that pushes the lower part of your bed out into the room. So you can actually save a lot of space with this special hack that I did that some of you might cringe when I tell you, or be really disapproving, because I sawed off the legs of this headboard. I drilled it into the masonry wall with these really deep bolted like screw things, so it's like super solid. You can do like, you know, climbing wall with these things. I kept it floating about a centimeter or two above the actual modern bed frame that I put underneath it, and then I could push that all the way up against the wall, and it gave me an extra, you know, 8 inches to the base of the bed. So that's really important in these smaller European bedrooms, to have more flow and stuff. So I'm really proud of that hack, but I do want to preface that by saying that these will not go to waste. I'm sure I'm going to use them in some other kind of upcycling project or sculptural project. I fixed a little lamp that's kind of ornate there, and I think it's cute and retro, and about this enchanted forest vibe that I'm trying to create with other aspects of furniture. I found these funky, some people might call them tacky, Christmas tree-like shelves that are kind of shaped like a Christmas tree. And I bought several of them of different sizes, and I was placing them in different corners of the room to just try to give this feel of like trees almost in here. And with one of the smaller ones, I realized that if I put a base that goes like conical kind of up, and then invert one and hang it from the ceiling and bolt it into the wall, it's like an upside down tree kind of vibe, but it creates this cool hourglass shape. And I'm just like, why not? Why not just hang it upside down? You know, maybe it's weird or crazy for some people, but for me, that's a perfect way of using something that other people might think is outdated or tacky. You can kind of take it and flip it on its head, literally, and do something that makes it feel a little bit different and fresh, and like you're owning its weirdness and stuff. So I think I'm doing that with some of these kind of tree-shaped shelves in the room that I hope add a little bit of a tree vibe. Another one of the really challenging pieces of furniture that I had to find was something to go underneath the window. There's actually a bit that's kind of carved out under the window, like to insert something, maybe a radiator or something, and it's 135 centimeters long. And I was looking all over the place in used markets and vintage stores and online, and I finally found a piece that had a wood cabinet base with rounded corners, which I always love, so you don't smack your hips into sharp corners and things like that, and with a marble top. And the marble matched perfectly with the marble windowsill. So I'm like, wow, it seems like it's made for it. I brought it home, and then I realized it didn't fit just barely, because the marble was a little bit wider than 135, or the walls aren't always necessarily exactly 90 degrees or perfectly plumb, especially in these old houses. I took the marble top and I sanded it down evenly on both sides, just enough, kept on testing until I got it right to be able to fit and insert underneath the windowsill. And now it fits perfectly. So there's this satisfaction of like playing Tetris as we slid it in underneath the window, and it's like, that looks like it's meant to be there. Sometimes you just have to be patient and keep looking. There's still so much more that I want to do with this room, but stick around for part 2, because you're going to see how I made this amazing gallery wall that looks like it's out of some magical world, and I can just feel this sense of satisfaction because it was really challenging dealing with all these Baroque shapes that are irregular and asymmetrical. But I'm going to show you how I tackled that in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this. I'm still probably going to do some other videos where I'm making some final tweaks, and I think that a lot of these projects can take time, and you just have to keep on kind of plugging away at it and adding it in different layers to get it to the point where you really feel like, this painting is finished, you know, this little last brush stroke here and there, and then you're like, okay, it's done. But you also have to know where to have some stopping points along the way. If you enjoyed this video and me talking about my aesthetics and my way of going about this home decoration, please, it would really help me if you would like and subscribe to help me grow this channel, as it's just something I'm starting out. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because during the pandemic, I was looking for inspiration for home decor and apartment tours and decoration. And I looked for things that were more maximalist or eccentric or colorful or unique and different. But I feel like there weren't enough of those things for me to click on. I feel like a lot of people kind of go for this very standard kind of mass market, understated elegance. But I'm looking for like overstated opulence, or at least something colorful or interesting. And so I thought, when I do this to my own space, I need to create some videos to share it with other people, because I would like to have more things that are colorful to click on. So that's why I'm here doing this. If you're here, I think that you might be into that too. So I am so excited to share the next part with you. So stick around and click on the next one, and you're gonna have fun there too. So thank you so much for being with me, and I will see you in the next one.